Let's be honest, life is busy. You've got work, family, and about 5 tabs open in your brain at all times. But your players are showing up this week and you haven't prepped. So, how do you plan a solid TTRPG session? One action, role play, and surprises, all in under an hour. Well, today on the Bearded Nerd podcast, I'm sharing my personal prep method for running great games fast. Whether you're a full-time GM, a once-a-month dungeon master, or someone looking to stop spending 5 hours on goblin cave layouts, this one's for you. So let's prep smarter, not harder, on today's episode of the Bearded Nerd podcast. In my experience, there are 4 things that every session actually needs. You really don't need 20 pages of notes. You just need 4 core elements. You need a clear hook, a conflict, a couple of scenes, and some loose ends. A clear hook. Why does this session even exist? A conflict. What threatens the players or their goals? A couple of scenes. They could be flexible, 2 or 3. They could be environments or situations, role play scenarios, whatever you determine as a scene, but 2 or 3. And then some loose ends. A cliffhanger, a mystery, or a consequence. If you can outline those 4 things, you've got 90% of a playable session. The 10% are just the gaps that you fill in. Instead of Boblin the Goblin, maybe their name is Thrak, ruler of the plains. But those 4 things will make your session gold. From there, how do you prep in an hour? Well, this is the basic guideline on how to prep your session from scratch in under 60 minutes. Number 1, define the purpose. That should take 10 minutes. What is the player facing reason this session exists? Is this reason a combat heavy reason or scenario? What's the social intrigue? Is it a dungeon crawl? Is it a sandbox? Right? What is the outcome of the player facing reason? If the players need to retrieve an ancient relic, but there's a rival faction already en route, could it end up in combat? Could it be a roleplay scenario? We don't know, but we can write out bullet points within 10 minutes on what would happen, right? So for example, if it's a roleplay outcome, write 1 bullet point. If the party persuades them, this is what happens. If the party doesn't persuade them, it goes into combat. Again, it's kind of like a flow chart. And if it goes into combat, what are the general stats? What can they do? What is their AC? What is their hit points? And here are some cool abilities. Boom, bingo, done. You can write all that down in 10 minutes and get a lot accomplished. From there, sketch out 2 or 3 key scenes. This would be about 20 to 30 minutes, give or take. The conservative effort would be 20, but I want to give you some time. And no, don't just have a bunch of text, right? It's just a setting. It could just be story beats that you want to ensure the party gets through, and maybe some likely interactions. And again, use a bullet point format. Let's say the first scene is a ruined chapel. You write down it has some traps. Maybe there's some haunted spirits that aren't necessarily wanting to fight the party, but they are prepared to do so, which then you can just copy and paste like a ghoul from a monster manual and proceed forward. You can have a trap where it just says, hey, everyone roll a dexterity saving throw, and if not, you get 2d6 worth of damage. Something like that. Very easy, straightforward. Maybe the second scene is a cliffside path, right? This scene leads out of the ruined temple. Is there an ambush? Is there a moral dilemma? Maybe there's a stranger who broke their leg. Do the players help this stranger or do they bypass them? And then write down some cool bullet point ideas. Maybe that NPC is just a random merchant. Maybe they're an angel of some sort hidden as an NPC to test the party. Again, prepping a combat or a hazard and a roleplay opportunity with a twist or two is key in these scenes. And cool thing about this is that there's so many random tables that you can basically just pull from there. Now, at this part of the episode, you may be thinking, where are the stats for the NPCs? What are we doing here? Because that takes time. Well, you really don't need a novel. You just need what their role is, maybe a quirk, and their motivation. If you want them to fight the enemies, right? You are dead set on them fighting the enemies because it will advance the story. Then definitely create a stat block or just reuse stat blocks and tweak it a bit, right? Let's say that merchant is just a merchant with a broken leg. Their role is that of a merchant. They have a quirk or something, again, their broken leg, and their motive was to just get their wares to the next town. If you want the party to be in combat, which again, we as GMs, which is okay, we try to prep combat sessions because we're anticipating that the party is going to try to fight other people there. Number one, that's bad player behavior. I'll be the one to say it. That's bad player behavior. They should not be trying to fight everything and anything on site because not everything is trying to fight them. But you as the game master have the ability to say, hey, they're just wanting to do X, Y, Z. And even if the player is insisting upon fighting them, you roleplay it, you narrate, you all attack. Everyone roll an attack, choose one attack, and maybe they all do this cool cinematic move. And you describe that the NPCs are basically wiped out. You overpowered them and they're wiped out. And then the players, or rather the player characters, start to feel guilt about it, which then adds in a quest hook or a quest line. Maybe the NPC peasants and civilians of the village over are kind of murmuring about, well, we haven't seen our husbands in a while. They were out there scouting, defending our village from potential enemies. And then you link that event that they did as a consequence. It might sound kind of cruel, but again, bad player behavior sometimes require consequences. I say all this because, again, you don't have to prep every NPC and stat block. You just need to prep the stat blocks for those NPCs that are going to fight the party to progress a narrative or goal or motivation from the player's perspective. An example, Vilra, a broken knight. They were a fallen hero turned into a bounty hunter. And they have the quirk of just compulsively polishing their sword. And their motivation is to restore their lost honor. So, can the party fight them? Sure. But when you narrate it in a way where there's like an actual motivation and narrative purpose to this character, the players are more likely going to want to interact with this individual more than fight them. And if they do want to fight them, you can use the tip that I just said earlier, or you can just reuse a stat block that you Google and just make some small tweaks to it. The next 10 minutes will be spent adding the threads and the rewards, right? You can drop some clues or some mysteries that the players can pursue either next time or during their downtime. And that reward could be tied to the backstory or a faction or a belief, right? Maybe they find the villain's journal in the merchant's wares that the merchant dropped when they broke their leg, right? And then the PCs pick it up, and that adds a quest line that they can pursue next session. Again, very simple. Some optional add-ons that if you have time, you can create from scratch, even though I highly recommend you Google it. always Google or use third-party resources. You can use things that you see on Patreon. You can see or use things from folks in the community. But basic zones, maps, scenes, things like that, you can use or Google images, right? For that, you can kind of Google the image or procure one on Incarnate, something like that, right? You can easily research it. From there, prep music and ambiance, that's pretty easy. You should have a YouTube playlist that is obviously free for use, that you can just say, hey, D&D ambiance music traveling, or D&D ambience music combat, whatever you want to procure. You can find it on YouTube. Shouldn't take more than 5 minutes. You can then write 1 or 2 quotes or generate them on your favorite AI chatbot or phrases so that your villain can use, or just something cool that you like from a movie or a TV show. Again, very simple. And then leverage those random tables. I create them. There's a bunch of different creators out there. Lady Tiefling has amazing random tables that I have used in the past, and I've generated so many different or I've generated and kind of utilized that for my inspiration. Again, Lady Tiefling, phenomenal creator. So using things that have been already prepped, it's great. It always creates a level of awareness, but also a level of comfort, knowing that you don't have to spend so much time prepping when you can spend more time playing, right? So utilize those things. And again, leverage other people's work. I say it because it has helped me save so much time, especially as a dad. I have 2 beautiful kids. I have a beautiful wife that I want to spend time with, right? I have family and friends and commitments. And you do too. So save your time in those ways. And as a shameless plug, use things here on the Guildhall. If you are unfamiliar with the Guildhall, it's my Patreon service. Go ahead and utilize it. Find things there or on my Instagram and utilize the work of other creators. It's there for a reason, and I highly recommend you leverage it. Remember, prepping fast isn't about cutting corners. It's about focusing on what matters most to your players, which are choices, consequences, and those great moments, whether it's combat or roleplay. Start with those 4 core elements. Remember, you can splash in the who, what, where, when, why. The 5 W's of world building, remember? You can add that in there. But place a timer on your phone, on your smartwatch, whatever it may be, and let your creativity do the rest. And if you want this week's session prep blueprint, it's a printable 1-page prep tool. Again, for the sake of this episode, head to the Guildhall on Patreon. It'll help you go from 0 to session ready in under 60 minutes. So until next time, prep with a purpose, play with passion, keep those sessions rolling, be kind, be compassionate, and as always, y'all, keep gaming.